Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Marlow York and I am a self-published author. Now recently, my debut novel, Blood of Fire, turned 1 year old, and the anniversary of my publication has passed at the time that I will be posting this video. I feel like this is a good time to reflect back on some of the things that I've learned as part of my publication. As a self-published author, you quickly find out that there are a lot of things you have to do for yourself and that you have to learn as you go. And that's exactly what happened to me. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that this is a bad thing. I mean, of course, it would be more useful to know these things beforehand, but sometimes it's just not the name of the game. And this is by no means an extensive list, but this is just a handful of things that came to mind when I was thinking of doing this video. And it's interesting how a lot of them actually relate to each other. And I wouldn't say that these are all regrets. I don't really regret much of anything when it comes to publishing my novel because regret is such a strong word, and like I said, this is a learning experience for me. So I think I prefer to call these things that I wish I'd done differently or things that I would like to do differently for my next novel, which I'm currently in the process of editing. It's going to be the second book in the series, and it's called Trail of Flames. So the first thing that I wish I had done a bit differently with my debut novel is taken more time. And by taking more time, I don't mean that I necessarily rushed to finish my book, but I kind of did. So I originally had set a publication deadline for, I think, October or November of 2018. And while I think it is important to set deadlines for yourself, especially when it comes to the day you want to publish or the month that you want to publish, it's also very good to keep in mind that things happen and you might not make that particular deadline. So October and November passed and my new deadline was December 5th of 2018 because that's my birthday, and I thought it would have been really cool to say that I was published before turning 26. I believe that was my 26th birthday. So I just thought it was really cool to set a publication deadline before my birthday, but that came and passed too. And so my next deadline was to be published before the end of the year, which is a little bit more vague, but still it was approaching. And I did feel a lot of pressure to meet this deadline because I had set it for myself, and I'm really big on always getting my work done ahead of time. But when it comes to writing a novel, especially if you hire freelance editors or cover designers or other people to help you along the way, you can't always guarantee that their deadline for finishing your work will coincide with the deadline that you set for yourself for publication. And as the deadline that I set for myself was looming, I really did feel a lot more pressure to just get it over with and to get it online. And I didn't realize at the time that when it comes to publishing on Amazon KDP or Kindle Direct Publishing, you can't really choose the date of publication. And I didn't know that until I actually was uploading all the files and filling out the information and was going to hit publish. I thought it would be live right away, but it said that it would take, I believe, up to 48 or even 72 hours to basically confirm that my book was ready to go, and they would basically notify me when the book was live. And so I kind of raced to do that a little bit, and it did cost me, and I don't mean in money, I mean in something else that leads into number 2. I wish I had hired a copy editor or proofreader to go through line edits. I'm sure I'm not the only self-published author that has had this happen to them, but when my book initially came out, it had a lot of really dumb small mistakes in it. I think there was only one instance where the formatting was off a little bit, but that to me wasn't such a huge deal. What really bothered me was that it did have some spelling mistakes, and most of them weren't like big deal, like horrendous spelling or grammar errors. A lot of them were instances where I could tell that I had rewritten a sentence, but instead of just deleting the entire sentence or the segment of the sentence, I would often write in the new sentence that I wanted and delete stuff. And it just kind of made it so there would be parts of the sentence left behind. Or there'd be really dumb mistakes like I'd be typing too fast and I would write the word as instead of a, or as instead of an. And there was one instance where I wrote tail, T-A-L-E, instead of T-A-I-L. I honestly don't remember which tail that I actually meant. I remember so clearly that that was a specific mistake I'd made because it's just such a dumb mistake to make. And I feel really bad that I didn't take more time to have someone or to have more people look over with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that all these dumb mistakes were were gone and taken care of. And the fortunate thing about Amazon is that you can fix any mistakes like that and re-upload as many times as you want without being charged. And I ended up doing that a lot. Sometimes I would find the mistake, but the thing that we notice, I'm sure plenty of writers have noticed this, is that when you're reading the same thing again and again, especially on a screen, I don't know about you guys, but when I really want to edit something, it helps to have it in paper in front of me and not on a screen. Like, for some reason, I don't really focus as well when I'm reading off a screen. I prefer to read an actual book or a piece of paper in my hands. So I sometimes notice these mistakes myself. Other times, other people would point them out to me, and that was super embarrassing. And no one really called me out and said, oh, this is full of mistakes, it's awful. You know, they were pretty understanding and could tell, yeah, these are small mistakes that my brain tricked me into thinking that I saw one thing when there was actually something else on the page. But it just felt very unprofessional, and I do feel bad that my book had any mistakes in it. And I know it's really difficult to find every mistake, no matter how many people you have editing your work, because even very famous books, such as, Harry Potter stands out to me. There's an edition of the Bible that has some interesting mistakes in it. And sometimes you can have a dozen people read the same thing, and maybe the very last person who reads it will catch that mistake, or maybe none of them will, and it'll be a completely different person later on that points it out. I'm not too hung up about it, but still, I wish it hadn't happened. Hi, buddy. What you doing? Did you get all your cookies? I bet there's still cookies in your bone. You're just gonna stare at me? Okay. No pressure, just stare at me while I'm filming. Creep. The third thing that I wish I had done differently with my debut novel was I wish I had ordered proof copies. Proof copies aren't necessarily mandatory, but they can really help you find those mistakes and actually see how your book will look formatted in its final form. I believe when I published Blood of Fire, there wasn't an option to order proof copies, but having the actual book in my hands, this I believe is 9x6, whereas the manuscript in Word is, I believe, 12x9. And once I had the actual book in my hands, that was when a lot of these small mistakes became much more apparent, and I noticed a lot of duplicate words on the same page. But it didn't become a pet peeve of mine until I had the actual book in my hands, and I realized I would sometimes say a word like glared 3 or 4 times on the same page, and that can be really distracting for readers. And that doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a word that's on a page a bunch of times, you want to go through the thesaurus and try to find a different word. You don't necessarily need to find an exact replacement, but maybe you can leave the word out altogether or just find a different way to phrase the same sentence. The fourth thing I wish I'd done differently with my debut novel was I wish I'd planned a more exciting debut or even planned a release party. It isn't necessary to have a release party, but after watching some of my fellow writers have their release parties, I kind of wish I'd done it for myself. Some people do release parties in person, such as at their house or a local library. You can plan games or events and opportunities for people to win a free copy of the book or book swag. But I didn't do any of that. And I suppose it's kind of in the same line of whether or not you want to throw yourself a birthday party. Some people are all about birthday parties every year. Other people couldn't care less if anyone celebrates their birthday. But the difference with a debut party is that you do have the chance to get more people talking about it, so that even if they don't win a book or some swag, or if they don't know about your book in general, then you have the opportunity for more people to get the word out and be excited about your book later on. The fifth thing I wish I'd done differently when it came to publishing my debut novel is I wish I'd taken a little bit more time to celebrate and actually enjoy my success. It's not to say that I completely brushed over the entire thing, but because I couldn't plan a specific release date for my book, I kind of hit the publish button and that was it. I had to wait, and then when Amazon finally emailed me that my book was live and for sale, then I could start telling people about it. The reason I didn't really do even an online release party, like a virtual one on Instagram Live or Facebook Live or something, was because it was just me and my now husband living in a house where I was working full-time, he was going to school and working, and it was just a sort of time where we were just so busy doing so many other things that my book getting published was exciting, but we didn't really have time to celebrate it. I'm definitely not one for planning parties. I don't really know anything about that, and I don't necessarily mean that my book needed a party and that I would have invited a bunch of people over, especially like non-writer people who don't quite understand how exciting it can be to release your book. but I still wish I had done something a little bit commemorative. I think the only thing I did was maybe take a short break from writing so that I could let my brain unwind a little bit before I started working on the second book. And I remember I also bought myself a slice of cake probably a few weeks after the fact, so I felt like I didn't quite get to celebrate the way that I had wanted to, but again, it's not that big a deal, and I know a lot of people don't celebrate their book releases at all, but sometimes you just want a reason to celebrate and feel good about something that you spent so many years working on, and I didn't quite have that opportunity. Do I know what I would have done in order to celebrate? Not really, but I just felt like there were so many other things going on that I kind of had to push it to the side, and then next thing I knew, I was working on Trail of Flames. And the last thing on my list of things that I wish I'd done a little bit differently when it comes to my debut novel, I wish I had lowered my expectations for my immediate success. I definitely didn't expect that my book would become a bestseller overnight, because that's really unrealistic and that's not really how my brain works. However, I did feel like more people would be a little bit more excited and that there would be enough of a buzz going that maybe I would sell more than I did initially. And don't get me wrong, I sold quite a few books right off the bat, but most of them were to people who I already knew personally. And so I guess I did have this feeling that maybe I had already spent enough time building an author platform that other people, other writers or strangers would be more interested in my book, and that wasn't the case. And no, I'm not surprised, but I think it definitely would have lowered my disappointment a little bit if I hadn't assumed that my book would be more attention-grabbing right off the bat. I've gotten really good feedback in the last year about my book, and it is really exciting that it exists, and some people are calling it, their favorite indie book of the year, which is really exciting. People have made fan art for it, and it does feel really good that it has had this sort of slow burn success. Oh, burn. See what I did there? Burn. Wow. I need to be done. So I guess I really should just sort of accept the fact that as an indie writer, my books aren't necessarily going to shoot to the charts right off the bat, and for that to happen would be very rare. But I should feel very satisfied and happy that people have been buying my book and reviewing it. Not as many reviews as I would hope, considering the number of people who have bought it, but we'll not go there right now. But overall, I am pretty happy with the success that I've had so far, and it shouldn't matter that I'm on the New York Times bestseller list and I'm not on an Amazon #1 ranking or anything, because this is my debut novel and I do have intentions to write and publish more novels, so this really does feel like a really good way to jump into the pool, so to speak, and get my book out there and get myself out there as a writer, so hopefully when the next book comes out, maybe it'll have a little bit more success and attention than this one did, because my writing skills will be better. Hopefully I will have taken more time, and hopefully I'll have it in my budget to hire a proofreader or line editor or whatever you want to call it. But I guess I understand why I didn't do that, because, I didn't have a very big budget. Like I said, I can't say that these are regrets, because I did the best I could with the resources that I did. And that's what I'm going to do for my next book. I'm going to continue to work as hard as I did before and try to take my time a little bit more so that maybe the mistakes that I did make, they won't be so prevalent, or maybe they won't exist at all in the second one. So I guess that's all I have for you guys today. If you are interested in buying Blood of Fire, it is for sale on Amazon in paperback and Kindle form. The link is in the description. If you'd like to keep up with my writing endeavors on other social media platforms, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Goodreads. All of those will be linked down in the description. So until next time, see ya!